Before the end of the year 2024, Korean Air reported it completed its acquisition of its fellow South Korean carrier, Asiana Airlines, just over 4 years after it was first announced. The acquisition, described by Korean Air as a, quote, strategic milestone for Korea's aviation history, has been a long process. Each have their own reasons for entering into the merger. While it saved Asiana, Korean Air went through the acquisition process that ended up becoming one of the longest in aviation history. After a major investment and sacrifices, Korean Air can now somewhat claim its prize. Before going further, we'll take a look at the history of the Korean Air Asiana merger, which was first announced just over 4 years ago. During the mid to late 2010s, Asiana went through financial difficulties and an accounting scandal. Facing large debt and rising costs, the Korea Development Bank would become the company's main creditor and provided support for the struggling airline. While helping to keep Asiana in business, KDB gave Asiana's parent company, Kumho Asiana Group, 2 conditions, with the first to improve the airline's financial situation, and second, the sale of its majority stake in Asiana, the Kumho Group's flagship property. Towards the end of 2019 and early 2020, 2 companies emerged as the frontrunners to acquire Asiana, the first being the Hyundai Development Company and Aekyung, the parent company of South Korean budget airline Jeju Air. HDC would be named the preferred bidder of the initial bidding process, and things were going smoothly until the COVID-19 pandemic. With most of the global aviation industry players grounded, and a sharp decline in passenger traffic among the South Korean airlines, including Asiana, HDC requested a review of Asiana's finances before going forward towards the end of the summer of 2020. As a result, the company would not continue in its process to acquire Asiana. While the situation was looking further bleak for Asiana, the savior would come in the form of South Korea's biggest airline and its main rival, Korean Air. In November 2020, Korean Air's parent company, Hanjin Group, would announce it would acquire the majority stake of Asiana. In addition to satisfying regulatory and financial obligations at home, Korean Air would seek the approval for the merger from 13 other countries. Both South Korean airlines, the government, and stakeholders had hoped the acquisition would go smoothly. Instead, it would turn out to be a long drawn-out process lasting over 4 years. During the past 4 years, some of the biggest hurdles that Korean Air faced during the acquisition process were from countries where both Korean Air and Asiana operate the majority of the passenger and cargo flights from Korea. The biggest concerns were raised in North America, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. As a result, Korean Air has had to address the concerns of competition regulators in those areas and countries, and concessions were made. Among the biggest concessions were made was for the EU, where Korean Air gave up flight slots to help smaller South Korean budget airline T-Way launch new flights to 4 European destinations: Barcelona, Frankfurt, Rome, and Paris. The second was for the sale of Asiana's cargo business, which the winning bidder was cargo airline Air Incheon. Finally, Just after more than 4 years since the initial announcement, Korean Air announced the completion of its acquisition of Asiana on December 12, 2024. The bigger South Korean airline would take in over 131 million newly issued shares of Asiana. With investments through third-party capital increase totaling around 1.5 trillion Korean won, Asiana would also become a subsidiary of Korean Air. While the transaction is complete, the work is not done. The combined airline has new business to address: the integration of both the airline's networks, fleet, staff, and frequent flyer programs, which are expected to be completed within the next 2 years. Between the two newly merged airlines, Korean Air is the bigger of the two South Korean airlines, serving 111 cities in 40 countries, while Asiana serves 84. Excluding their subsidiaries, the combined fleet totals over 200 aircraft, with Korean Air having the bigger fleet of 159 to Asiana's 68. There are similarities, but also some differences in their networks and fleet. Both airlines operate the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo and the Boeing 777s. Among the noticeable differences is Asiana operates a mostly Airbus aircraft fleet. Meanwhile, Korean Air has a long history of operating Boeing aircraft, from the 777 and 787 to the 737 MAX. Though the airline also does operate Airbus aircraft such as the A321neo and has orders for A350s. When it comes to route optimization, much of the focus will be on international flights to and from Incheon Airport. Among the similarities are services to major markets such as in Europe, Japan, China, and North America. Though now as it forms one airline, both airlines will also help fill gaps by each other, with Asiana serving unique destinations such as Cairo, Almaty, and Melbourne. Korean Air will be adding to the mix destinations like Dubai, Kaohsiung, Macau, Denpasar, Bali, Kuala Lumpur, and destinations in North America such as Vancouver and Toronto in Canada, along with Atlanta, Boston, Washington, Dulles, Chicago, and Las Vegas in the United States. While operating separately for the time being, Asiana is expected to exit from Star Alliance as it gets folded into Korean Air, a member of SkyTeam. After more than 2 decades, Star Alliance will no longer be represented locally in South Korea. Despite losing a hub in North Asia, in Seoul, Star Alliance has its Tokyo area hubs, Haneda and Narita, where it is represented by All Nippon Airways. As for the frequent flyer programs, Korean Air reported it will submit an integrated frequent flyer program framework to the Korean Fair Trade Commission by June 2025. This will cover major points such as the points transfer and frequent flyer status from Asiana's club program. Further details for the frequent flyer program changes are expected to be announced later. As for the nearly 30,000 employees of both airlines, Korean Air stated the integration will proceed without workforce restructuring. In its statement, Korean Air said, quote, "The combined organization projects natural staff growth through business expansion, with employees in overlapping functions being reassigned within the organization." Other eventual changes expected to take place are the integration of both airlines' IT systems and organization. The budget carrier subsidiaries of Asiana, Air Seoul, and Air Busan are expected to be integrated under Korean Air's Jin Air brand. According to a report from the Korean Jongang Daily, Asiana's flights, along with Air Busan and Air Seoul to and from Incheon Airport, will be shifted to Terminal 2, Korean Air's base of operations at Incheon Airport, starting in the second half of 2025. Korean Air and Asiana are formidable airlines in their own right. Though now combined, we will soon get a South Korean supercarrier, both in passenger and cargo traffic. With the formation of the supercarrier, you'll see a reduction of airlines based in the country from the current 10 to 7, this including the integration of the budget airline subsidiaries. At present, according to data from Serum, the enlarged Korean Air Jin Air Company will serve a majority, 49%, of the country's international seat capacity. To encourage competition, South Korea's government could provide new incentives for airlines, both local and foreign, for new routes and increased flight frequencies. While Korean Air and Asiana will seek to optimize their fleets and network, it could open up new opportunities for other airlines to fill the gaps that could be created. While losing a local airline alliance member, other Star Alliance member airlines can also take advantage of any programs created to promote additional international flights to and from South Korea. The future Korean Air Jin Air will be the dominant airline in terms of international seat capacity in South Korea, with the closest competitors being Jeju Air, followed by T-Way. Despite the dominance, Koreans still have multiple competing choices with 5 local airlines and their foreign-based counterparts for overseas travel. With a recent history of new startup airlines forming, local business groups still can form new competitors to Korean Air and Jin Air. Even with the dominance of the South Korea's aviation industry by Korean Air and Asiana before the merger, it has not deterred the country's budget airlines from bringing its own challenges to the duopoly, and it will likely not change going forward. What are your thoughts on the completion of the acquisition by Korean Air of Asiana? And how do you see the future of South Korea's aviation industry going forward? I definitely would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Though in the meantime, this has been Flights in Asia. Thank you for watching and have a great day.